Hello students, welcome to Eduauraa. My name is Rajni Jha and I'll be taking Sociology optional classes. The first strength would be respondent-led. Unstructured interviews are respondent-led. This is because the researcher listens to what the respondent says and then asks further questions based on what the respondent says. This should allow the respondents to express themselves and explain their views more fully than with structured interviews. Second is flexibility. The researcher can change his or her mind about what the most important questions are as the interview develops. Unstructured interviews thus avoid the imposition problem, that is, respondents are less constrained than with the structured interviews or questionnaires in which the questions are written in advance by the researcher. This is especially advantageous in group interviews, where interaction between respondents can spark the conversation that interviewer hadn't thought would have happened in advance, which could then be probed further with an unstructured methodology. Next advantage is rapport and empathy. Unstructured interviews encourage a good rapport between the interviewee and the interviewer. Because of their informal nature, like guided conversation, unstructured interviews are more likely to make respondents feel at ease than with more formal setting of a structured questionnaire or experiment. This should encourage openness, trust, and empathy. Next advantage is checking understanding. Unstructured interviews also allow the interviewer to check understanding. If an interviewee doesn't understand a question, the interviewer is free to rephrase it or to ask follow-up questions to clarify aspects of the answer that were not clear in the first instance. Unstructured interviews are good for sensitive topics because they are more likely to make respondents feel at ease with the interviewer. They also allow the interviewer to show more sympathy, if required, than with the more mechanical quantitative methods. Next advantage is the empowerment for respondents. The researcher and respondents are on a more equal footing than with the quantitative methods. The researcher doesn't assume they know the best. This empowers the respondents. Feminist researchers in particular believe that unstructured interview can neutralize the hierarchical, exploitative power relation that they believe to be inherent in the more traditional interview structure. They see the traditional interview as a site for exploitation and subordination of women, with the interviewers potentially creating outcomes against their interviewees' interests. In traditional interview formats, the interviewer directs the question and takes ownership of the material. In feminist interview method, the woman would recount her experiences in her own words, with the interviewer serving only as a guide to the account. There are certain practical advantages as well. There are few practical advantages, but compared to full-blown participant observation, they are a relatively quick method for gaining in-depth data. They are also a good method to combine with overt participant observation in order to get respondents to further explain the meanings behind their actions. So, in short, they are impractical unless you are in the middle of a year-long participant observation study.